Walter, you ready? Good morning again. Good morning, everyone. Everybody, we are live, and we want to let all of the residents that are watching be able to participate as well, because we're going to have some questions online. But the guests that are here are the most important because you got in the building. Thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Councilman Douglas Lawson. I represent District 5 of City of Riviera Beach. And today we're doing the Business Corridor Business Lunch and Learn. We want to discuss about the development of the city, the direction that the city is going, and reimagine Riviera Beach. We were slated with the position of providing a development in regards to growth of our community. The city, over the last 20, 30 years, hasn't seen the development that we've seen in other corridors throughout West Palm, throughout Palm Beach Gardens, and throughout the nation. Our infrastructure is crumbling, and we have to address that. So our council was slated with the opportunity of reimagining and redeveloping our community. Today, we're focusing on the Broadway Corridor. The Reimagine model that we've looked at is we've presented different ideas throughout Riviera Beach to discuss where we want to position our future buildings, which is our city hall, our police, our fire stations. As you know, we were actually just able to clear the land on the corner of Congress and Blue Heron, and we're starting our fire station 88. We had our ribbon cutting for our brand new library on the corner of Congress and Blue Heron as well. We're looking to develop all of Riviera Beach, not just one sector or one area. Today's business sector is going to focus on Broadway and Avenue E and what we're looking to develop, possibly bringing in our city hall to our downtown corridor and activating that to make it look more of a downtown. So we reached out to the businesses local throughout Riviera Beach and said, hey, come in, let's discuss ideas and visions and see where we'd want to go as a council. We have to hear from every resident. So every shareholder, we're asking for your input. Today's Lunch and Learn is more of an engagement. Give us your feedback, give us your thoughts, give us your direction so that we as a council can make the right decision to put buildings in the right areas. So before we go on, I wanted to introduce some of our staff that's here today. We have Ms. Anita Jenkins, who's with our CRA and our CDC and the director of the CDC. She's right over here. We have Mr. Scott Evans. He works with our CRA as the assistant director. We have Mr. Jonathan Evans, who's our city manager and our CRA director. We have Mr. Clarence Sermons, who's our development services coordinator. And we have Mr. Nottingham, who's actually slated with taking on the image of reimagining Riviera Beach. He is someone that is integral and going to be speaking today to discuss how we came to the decisions we've come to today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our city manager, Mr. Jonathan Evans.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. Certainly my apologies for being tardy. I was actually talking about the space planning for the new City Hall campus. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we extract from you all today is your input and feedback with regards to this generational decision that the board will have to make. When we talk about Reimagine Riviera Beach, what is that? Well, we looked at our facilities, and all our facilities in our community are at the end of their useful life. They were all built in the 1970s. And so now we fast forward to 2021 and the buildings are not performing. The buildings have significant water intrusion issues. They are a detriment to some of our personnel to where we've had to actually close facilities. And now how do you attract the next generation of the workforce when you have a facility that can't perform? For example, the space that we're in today is actually the space where we host your city council meetings, because our existing council chambers cannot accommodate what COVID has done to us as we look at these particular spaces. So as you hear from the presenters today, please give us your input, your feedback, your perspective. The board has tasked staff with looking at multiple options. Do we reconstruct City Hall on the existing campus? Do we relocate City Hall across the street where the Wells Recreation Center is? Or do we look to put City Hall off the Broadway corridor? All those conversations and discussions have been happening for multiple years, but now it's time for the rubber to meet the road. Now it's time for us to move forward with these capital construction projects. The city of Riviera Beach holistically has roughly about $400 million worth of capital infrastructure projects that will come to market. If you are a local business in this community, and you're not participating in those opportunities, we didn't do our job, and you didn't do your job. We need to work collectively together to ensure that economic development and economic opportunity is for all those that live, work, and play in the city of Riviera Beach. We can't utilize the slogan, the best waterfront city in which to live, work, and play, if we as a city are not creating economic opportunity for you to grow your small, medium, or large-scale business. We need to make sure that when we build these facilities, we build them with intentionality behind them. Some of the conversations that we've had, we've looked at some of the private sector models. When we talk about recreation centers, if you go to the Wells Recreation Center, anyone that has lived in our community and has recreated in our community, that is the same facility plus a different coat of paint that you recreated in. That's not acceptable. That's not a reflection of this community. It's not a reflection of this administration, and it's not a reflection of the direction that we're going to move. So as we talk about these facilities, and if you've seen facilities or you've been places all over the world that you think, hey, they may have built a good mousetrap that we need to consider, let's look at it. When we're looking at our recreation centers, just for conversation's sake, we're looking at college campus recreation centers. We're looking at wellness centers. We're looking at when you walk into a wellness center, the new Wells Recreation Center, you'll be able to get a smoothie, get on the elliptical, walk in the suspended track, go out to the lazy river. We're looking at things that are non-traditional of government. Because if we're going to do it, let's do it right, and let's do it in a space that people want to come to and be involved in at all conceivable walks of life. We want to have a facility where mom, dad, grandparents can recreate. One of the things that if you read some of the studies from AARP, they said if you are building senior centers for this generation, you have missed the mark. Seniors are not recreating at your traditional senior centers. They want more activity centers. They want tours. They want cruises. They want social outings. Generational study shows that baby boomers and Generation X have a lot in common. So we're looking at all different forms and fashions to be able to deliver facilities that emulate the community where you can age in place. So we don't have the market captured on what's the best idea, but we've come up with ideas and solutions that we think will move us forward. You'll also hear about components that, did you know that 11,000 people, and we have about 38,000 people in our community, 11,000 people leave Riviera Beach for employment, and 18,000 people come in? That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We should have a situation where you can walk, ride a bike, or have a short commute to work for gainful employment. We need to raise the per capita personal income. We need to look at things holistically. You'll also see, when we have conversations with groups such as this, that a majority of your disposable income is spent building other communities, not investing here in Riviera Beach. So how do we create a place such as City Hall where if you're a small restaurateur, whether you're a studio, whether you're a cleaning business, that you have an opportunity to participate in the overall design and what goes into the City Hall campus. But it's conversations such as this, it's meetings such as this, that help as catalysts as we move this project forward. One of the things that I can tell you, and I've made it clear to groups we've talked about, I'm not doing this presentation again. We need to move on these facilities, and we have to move on these facilities now. I'm not leaving this to another city manager. I'm not leaving this to another elected body. We have to move on these facilities now. Our water plant, one of the things that is so important, it's the most important service that we provide as a city. It touches all our residents every day, at least we hope. That particular facility is going to cost us anywhere from $100 to $150 million. You have 4 companies that have put in solicitations to be able to facilitate the development of a new water treatment plant on the corner of Broadway or Blue Heron and Avenue L. The city acquired the parcel that fronts Blue Heron to be able to start the administrative construction of the new water plant. We received $17.25 million, or at least the first tranche of that, from the federal government, which will go into the water plant. So probably in about 4 to 6 months, you'll see activity occurring where your new water plant will be. So we're looking at infrastructure projects holistically. We're looking at things that are going to change our community for a generation. But it's so important that we have your input, your thoughts, your perspectives, your ideas. This is a place where we take that information, and on our first meeting in October, I'm going to be asking the board to commit on the location of where City Hall will be planted. The site that we're looking at, that you'll hear about today, is actually the site where we have a photo where City Hall was constructed in 1962, or where it was present in 1962. So there's multiple ideas, there's multiple solutions, and based on the input and feedback that we're getting from this group and other groups, that's what we're going to take to the board to make a decision. So please ask all the questions you have. Don't leave here without a question unanswered. If you think of something, please make sure that you email us your thoughts, comments, and perspectives. We're in this together. We want to invite you all, and I'm speaking it into existence, wherever the location is, that we want to be able to break ground on the new City Hall campus September 29th of 2022. That is the city's 100th birthday. The city turns 99 in less than 2 weeks. So please, let's work together. Let's facilitate a collaborative discussion. And I'm glad to see some of the faces and folks in the community that I've worked with on other projects and other initiatives, because it shows that you all are really buying into, hey, let's get this done, and let's be the group to do it. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Councilperson Lawson, who will introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
So everyone that's here, we're going to have a quick break at about 12:15 to do our lunch. It'll be about a 15-minute break so that we can do a one-on-one engagement and really talk about some of the designs that we have here in the building. Next up, we have Mr. Scott Evans. He is our Planning and Development Director. He's been with the city for a number of years, and he works within our CRA department. Our CRA corridor is a facet of the city that addresses slum and blight. It's our downtown corridor. That's what our CRA is focused on, and that's what Mr. Evans has been focused on with his planning skills and with his development skills in the city. So, Mr. Scott Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming, everyone. I think the siting of a new city hall and all of the various facilities is a really great opportunity for the city to really chart a really exciting new course forward. Of course, I've been working for the redevelopment agency since 2007, and one of the options that we're really excited about is the potential for the city hall to be located on Broadway. We have a lot of plans that we're trying to move forward, working with the development community, and we think that if we can put part of City Hall on Broadway, that will really make a significant step in establishing sort of the new vision that we'd like to come to Broadway. And of course, the city can't do it on its own. We need to work with our private development partners and the real estate community to try and create an environment where not only we set the standard with the kind of buildings that we put in, but also to attract the kind of nice developments, new commercial, residential, and some small office opportunities that will really help create a business environment that we'd like to grow in the Broadway corridor. The option, and I won't get too far into it since you're going to get a presentation and look at all these lovely boards that we've done, but of course right adjacent to Broadway is Avenue E corridor. And in the past year, the CRA has studied the revitalization opportunities along Avenue E. As a part of this, we had several workshops, one online and a couple in person, and we got the community involved to try and chart and design a new future for what Avenue E might look like. And part of what we've envisioned for the new City Hall, if it gets located, or part of it gets located in the Broadway corridor is that the property that the city and the CRA controls is actually also fronts on Avenue E. So it's the redevelopment of one site that has the potential to impact two different roadways and potentially bring forward the reconstruction of the Avenue E corridor. And of course that we've created a plan for, and that includes decorative streetlights, sidewalks, bicycle lanes. It also looks at trying to enhance revitalization of some of the properties that are in that corridor. There's a lot of vacant properties. There's some underdeveloped ones that we think we can apply some incentives to. And if we're able to upgrade the roadway and all of those utilities that are underneath it, I think that can be a very significant first step in not only changing how Broadway looks, but Avenue E. And the City Hall being ideally, potentially located on the Site C, I think that Mr. Dana Nottingham will go into, is a real opportunity for us to address both Broadway and Avenue E and potentially redo the roadway for Avenue E at the same time. Of course, we're working on a variety of other initiatives in the Broadway corridor. The CRA has acquired the property located, the old bank building, which is on the northeast corner of Broadway and Blue Heron. And the CRA board has hired a development team to put together this opportunity for that building to go out for redevelopment, looking for a private partner who will help us not only to replace that old building with something that would allow opportunity for new businesses to locate in Riviera Beach, new residents to come to provide more people who live, work, and I guess play on Broadway. Part of what we need to do is a lot of the commercial and retail businesses really across the country have struggled because of the big companies who ship to your door every day, whatever it is you want. And so what we're trying to do is by bringing more residents to Broadway Corridor, we'll create more opportunities for those neighborhood commercial, those services that you use every day, especially on your way home from work, or when you're just stopping to pick up a few things, because those opportunities still exist. And we don't want the Broadway corridor to move away anymore from being sort of a Riviera Beach's downtown area. And of course, towards that, we see that this property here is another opportunity. So we're looking to develop and bring a new hotel, parking garage, and some more residences and new business opportunities to this site, so we're actively working on that at the same time, and we think all of these opportunities can come together in the next few years. With the CRA Board, City Council's strong support, we're moving them forward as quickly as we can, but we need to have more opportunities like this so that as we move forward quickly, we can really incorporate what it is the residents are looking for, the business owners, and make sure that those future plans are developed in a partnership with the entire community. Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
The reason I brought Mr. Scott Evans up is because he's been working with our CRA, and he's working hand in hand with Mr. Jonathan Evans to get our development done within our CRA corridor. So Mr. Evans has the most knowledge of this city, especially when it comes to the CRA district. So he'll be the one that I want you guys to really sit down with and discuss questions and concerns, because there's so many programs outside of just Reimagine. There's also the grants and the funding that we have available. There's the facade grants that we have available, the redevelopment grants and funding. So Mr. Evans will have some insight. So while we're doing our lunch portion, I want you guys to pick his brain, find out what funding is possibly available and also coming down the pipeline. I see some businesses here that have capitalized on the incentives that Mr. Evans has brought to the table in regards to the signage, in regards to the redevelopment, in regards to revitalization. So he's the one that actually writes that check and says, here you go, guys. This is what we're going to do to allow for development in that Broadway corridor. So during our lunch section, I want you guys to kind of pick his brain in regards to what funding is available and also visions and ideas of what additional funding we can put in place for the businesses in our downtown corridor. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Next up, we've talked about, since we've got on this current council has talked about succession planning. It's talked about continuity in government. It's talked about continuing a progress of development and growth. So what we did is we decided to bring in some team members, staffers, and individuals that could take on the reins of continuing to grow and develop. We have Ms. Marcia Noel here, and she's actually the assistant to the city manager, and she's working with the city. Mr. Evans has worked with her for a number of years, and she's come in to kind of provide support and guidance to Mr. Evans and to the other departments. So I'm going to have Ms. Marcia Noel come do the introduction for our next speaker.
Thank you, Councilman Lawson. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great start to your morning. My name is Marcia Noel, assistant to the city manager, and I've been now here with the city for approximately 2 years. November will make it 2 years since I've been working here, and it's been such a pleasure to be part of a great movement, I believe. I think the city is certainly on the track to really accomplish many of the goals that we've set for ourselves in support with the community. Today I have the opportunity and the pleasure to present to you our next speaker. This person is the individual that's assisted us in essentially creating a community engagement plan to engage members here, residents, businesses, or what have you, about our Reimagine Riviera Beach project. And so Mr. Dana Nottingham has been working in the urban development world for approximately 40 years. So I think he is well seasoned, well experienced, and if anything, he lends a lot of support to what we're doing. So we brought him in to be the advisor for this project, and essentially he assisted us with doing a 4-part Reimagine Riviera Beach community workshop series that took place in June. But before all of that, he's worked as the downtown development director for Miami. He's worked with Disney and a number of other municipalities. And so we brought him in again to Riviera Beach to assist us with this. And so without further ado, I'd like to ask Mr. Dana Nottingham to join me up front so he can discuss with you the different options that you'll have an opportunity to share your input on. So this is going to be critical. We've done our very best to make sure this presentation gets straight to the point, but nonetheless provides you the context you'll need to better understand these different boards that you see in front of you. So, Mr. Dana Nottingham.
Good evening. Good morning, I guess. What time is it? It's lunchtime. Thanks to everyone for giving me the opportunity to be here. The tone that I want to set is less of being a feature presenter and more of a work session, because my job as a facilitator in this situation has been to facilitate the exchange of a lot of information and ideas and questions and concerns. And the manager, his vision for a workshop series was for it to be 2 things. One, he wanted it to be interactive, meaning people could get in small groups and really drill down, and he wanted it to be progressive, which means that each workshop built upon the prior workshop. So we have 4 workshops, about 3 hours apiece. So that's 12, okay? So what I'm going to try to do today is condense 12 hours of workshop into 20 minutes. And in order to do that, I have to move right through it. I'm going to move quickly. I'm going to move quicker than I can. I'm a Southern boy from Hampton, Virginia. I talk a little slow. But I'm going to talk from my notes, okay, because I don't want to miss anything. Now, at your desk, you have this package here. I look at this package as being a takeaway, because this is a lot of information. It's coming at you. And although you will have questions and answers here in this session, there will still be things that you are interested in. And this will just give you a framework. I didn't call them advantages and disadvantages. I called them advantages and items that require more focus and work when we look at each of the options. And we're going to be going through that. Then you have another sheet of paper. And toward the end of this session, at the bottom of this paper, it has options A, B, and C. We are asking you, it's a legal size piece of paper. It should be on your desk. We are asking you to, after hearing a presentation on the 3 options, we're asking you to just indicate which one is your preference, okay? And when I say which one is your preference, it's like, given what you've heard in this moment of time, okay, which one moved you the most and made you feel that it offered more short and long-term benefits to the city of Riviera Beach? So with that, I'm gonna start the presentation. Where's Marsha? I can't even see you. Okay. And what we're doing, you're gonna hear me say next, next, next. We're gonna have to go through the slides that way. And good, I can see it a little bit. Okay, this is a piece of storytelling. In 2020 and early 2001, the city council and the manager and their technical team, they had started to advance a major public improvement project. And the goal was to make a tangible difference in 7 different areas, and these areas are pretty important. 1, government administration and municipal services, public safety and emergency operations, water resources management, lifelong learning and library services, physical and mental health and wellness, coordinated parks and recreational services, and to attract private investment, business jobs, and tax revenues. And when you think about it, this got translated into a master public development program, but that master program actually includes like 10 projects, okay? So this, what we're talking about today, is huge. This is positioning your city for the next 50 to 100 years. And these sub-projects within this master program include a new city hall, new city administration building, new library, new wellness center, new parks and greenways, new fire station, new police station, new emergency operations center, a new water plant, okay? And it designates land for private mixed-use development. So that is major. And I've heard it estimated that it could cost more than $200 million. I've heard numbers higher than that. So that's why we're here today. Next. Next. Okay, it's one before that. Yes. Okay, like any bold vision, like life, like your life, there are 2 sides of the coin. One is a challenge, and the other is an opportunity. Okay, next. Now, in this situation, the challenge and the opportunity, and there's one more challenge, and the manager talked about it earlier. It was to have a holistic approach instead of an incremental approach. You can't do anything as big as this without thinking holistically. Okay, what are the elements and how do you connect the dot and how does that deliver predictable outcomes that will drive economic development as well as enhance the quality of life? Next. And so in this case, when I say 2 sides of the opportunity, one side of the opportunity is to update those 50-year-old buildings that the manager was talking about. That's a big challenge, okay? The other side of the coin is the opportunity to do that in a way that will catalyze broader revitalization. So you want to execute some specific public facility projects, but you want to do it in a way where it jumpstarts revitalization for your city and takes you where you want it to go. Next. So when we talk about holistic approach, we say that a lot, but what does that really mean, and what does it what does it look like? Now, this is a diagram of, I'm going to call it the city core of Riviera Beach. And the circle at the top is Singer Island, the commercial and neighborhood districts. The one in the center is Broadway US 1, commercial and neighborhood districts. And then the bottom left is Blue Heron and President Obama Highway and the FEC railroad tracks. So when we have these kind of conversations, the elephant in the room is, how do these specific incremental proposals for specific sites, how do they link to a broader strategy? And that's not an easy question to answer. And my overly simplistic answer to that question, which is tempered by 40 years of experience, is this. Next slide. No matter what city you go to where there's redevelopment going on, and responsible redevelopment that's going on, meaning it is holistic. It addresses the economic, the community, and the quality of life. In advancing redevelopment, there are 3 sub-strategies that are going on at the same time. And I call it the 3 R's. The first R is reinforce, which is build on your strengths. The second R is maximize untapped potential. And the third R is restructure, which is simply stated, fix what's broken, okay? Now, if you look through that lens and look at the city core of Riviera Beach, reinforced strategy, let's say at the ocean front of Singer Island, is to build on those strengths. Okay, the strength of being at the ocean front, right? Build on those strengths. Next, revitalize. The revitalization strategy, let's say for this conversation, we're focused on Blue Heron at Broadway US 1 and the surrounding neighborhoods. So that's the focus of our revitalization strategy. And then third, which is C on the diagram that you're looking at, is to restructure. See, sometimes you have to restructure, okay? In this case, the restructure strategy is to demolish the water plant, the city hall, fire station, police station, library, and the Wells Center, in order to advance your long-term vision and to accomplish those 6 or 7 benefits that I spoke of up front. Sometimes you have to restructure, okay? So this diagram is the answer to that question of how do these proposed site development options for the 9 public projects, how does that link to a broader strategy? Next. And so the council and their technical team came up with 3 site design alternatives, and each alternative was a different way of housing the 9 different public facilities projects that I mentioned earlier. And so there's option A, option B, and option C. And what I'd like to do is go through each one of those options with you right now. So next, this is option A, okay? and what I'm doing with you right now, I'm sharing with you like my sketchbook, okay? This is option A. The north parcel, well, let me get you oriented first. Blue Heron is east and west, that red line, and President Obama Boulevard is north to south, that vertical axis, okay? When I refer to the north parcel, I'm talking about the parcel at the intersection of President Obama and Blue Heron that's at the top of that red line. north of that red line, where the existing city hall and the other facilities are located. Across the street where the Wells Center is, I'm going to refer to that as the south parcel. You're going to hear that throughout the presentation, okay? And these are just bubble diagrams that show where these proposed public facilities would be located and positioned on the site. When you see blue, it means it's a private use. In this case, on the north parcel, there's private mixed-use development, which are those blue bubbles. And to the left, that square is indicating a parking garage next to a future to-be-determined train station. Okay? So this is option A, the north parcel, everything gets demolished, and that is the case on each one of these options. That everything north of Blue Heron, where the city hall is, gets demolished. Now, on the south side of the street, where the Wells Community Center is, the Wells Center will get demolished, okay? And all of these uses, in some form or fashion, will be replaced. Now, on the south parcel, which is below Blue Heron, in option A, the city hall and city administration is located there. Then below it is a new park and greenway system. And then at the bottom, and this is the same on all three options, there's a new public safety complex, which includes police, fire, and emergency operations, okay? And that is consistent on all three of those options. So when you say, what are the advantages of this option? And I'm just going to touch on a few, right? Well, by moving the city hall, by doing the demolition and moving the city hall on the south parcel, you're creating land on the north parcel for private mixed-use development, which is generating taxes and so forth. And as a part of all of this, everything is helping you to improve services. And when you talk about improved services, there are two sides of that coin. One, improve the services to you as the customer, and to do it more efficiently so it costs the city less money. Okay? The next one. Next. Now this is I just call it a sketch diagram. It's not the scale, it's me drawing, all right? But what it does show is the spatial relationship between the private parts, which are on the north parcel, and the public parts, which are on the south parcel. At the bottom of the page is the public safety complex that has those three uses. In the center, the land is designated for park, and fronting Blue Heron on the south parcel is City Hall administration and the library. And that is your option A. The next is option B. Okay. Again, this option, as I said, on the north parcel, which is above Blue Heron, all of that is demolished. And in this particular case, the city hall, the city administration, and the library are located on the north parcel. So basically what we would be doing is tearing it down and rebuilding in the same place on the north parcel, okay? Then on the bottom of the page, you see that blue rectangular square building that's fronting Blue Heron, that is small-scale commercial and retail development. Okay? In this scheme, at the very north tip, you have your public safety. You have your public safety complex, and in the middle, you have your park and your greenways. Situated. Okay? You have your parks and your greenways. This is option B. Now, for option B, there are a couple of disadvantages worth noting, okay? One disadvantage is if you demolish the city hall and you're going to build in the same location, there's a period of time where you got to relocate the operations of the city, okay? So that's a disadvantage, right? The other disadvantage is this. When you compare this to option A on the north parcel created a pad for private mixed-use development next to the parking garage and the train station. So every time I say private mixed-use development, you think ching, 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 money. Okay, all right. And in real estate, you sell land, right? But sometimes we forget, you sell land and you sell air rights. Okay, so if I'm a developer, some developers in the room, I see land next to a potential train station. Well, I think that I'm going to be able to do some transit-oriented development that might give me higher densities. So ching, 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 you know. And so the ching, ching is there. It's whose pocket is going in, right? So all we try to do is position this to create value that's doing two things. Is generating tax dollars, but also it's enhancing the quality of life for you, your family, and your kids. Okay? The next slide. Again, this is option B. And option B has the public uses in green on the north parcel. Okay, so everything's demolished there and rebuilt with the city hall, the library, and the administration building. And then on the south parcel, you see, you have limited retail and commercial. You have the public safety at the southern tip of this. This brings us to option C. Okay. This is a context map that shows you option C has some different things in it. First, it proposes locating the city hall along Broadway between 22nd and 23rd Street, adjacent to Avenue E. That's that gold dot you see off to the right. Okay? The other new thing that's in this scheme is that it includes a wellness center. So the land that would have been developed for a city hall on the south parcel, with the city hall moving off that site, it creates more land that in this scheme is devoted to a wellness center. Now, when I say a wellness center, to be determined, we're talking about a fitness center that also under one roof has health-related programs. The whole theme of it is a healthy lifestyle, okay? So the three dots on the left are showing on the south parcel the three public uses, right? The wellness center, the park, and the public safety complex. That's what those three dots are. Next. So this is how it starts to translate into a plan. You see at the top of the page, next to the parking and the train station, that's private mixed-use development. That's blue. And then at the bottom, on the south parcel, we see a wellness center, we see a park and a greenway, and we see the safety complex, which includes police, fire, and emergency service. Next. So in terms of the spatial relationship between the private parts, which are on the north parcel, the private mixed-use development next to the train station, next to the parking, and the public uses on the south parcel, which is the wellness center and the public safety facility at the bottom, and a park and greenway in the middle. That would be the spatial relationship. Next. Now, I mentioned that the proposed City Hall would be along Broadway, 22nd, 23rd at Avenue E. Okay? The way to look at this is that it is a City Hall complex that would include assembly, it would include administration, it would include parking, and on the ground floor, it would also include opportunities for commercial and retail. And the third opportunity, which Mr. Scott Evans mentioned, was that the City Hall is inside of the CRA district, and it's an anchor use to jumpstart revitalization along Avenue E, pursuant to a corridor and district master strategy that the CRA has developed. And the City Hall at this location also is an anchor to help jumpstart development along Broadway US 1. Okay? Now, this is...
Mr. Nottingham, real quick, in regards to that rendering that Mr. Nottingham is discussing now, this is just a sample of what that rendering would look like on option C. So if everybody could take a look, based upon that Avenue E and Broadway corridor, this is just a sample rendering that Mr. Evans and his team put together so that people could visualize what moving our City Hall to our downtown corridor would look like.
Right. And so you got the diagram here, and you got, that's just a diagram, but it's a more refined diagram. But you can see that there are commercial opportunities at the base, and you see those dotted lines that show that the building could be higher. There's also commercial opportunities for the city, because remember I said you're selling land and you're selling views, right? So there's an opportunity to lease or sublease space to other private enterprises that will have a beautiful view of your coast. Next. Now, you have to look at this real close, and this is one of my sketches, but I said it's worth putting in, that how would the City Hall fit within Avenue E? And you see, just in terms of a tone, you see the City Hall, you see the retail on the bottom floor, okay? But you see it nestled into the community, and you can envision how there would be residential housing, low-scale residential housing, integrated with small-scale, I'm saying retail, but I'm actually thinking cafes. You got people coming to the City Hall, building all that traffic. You're creating local commercial business opportunities. Okay? Next. I think that's it. Okay. So, what I've just done, I don't know if I did it in 20 minutes, but I took 12 hours of workshop, I reduced it into 20 minutes. We had a session, which was the second workshop, where we had people to divide into groups, and we had a group of 30 people, and we asked them, just based on what we've presented to you, which one is your preference? And that night, in that setting, those people, 21 of them said option C. 21 of them said option C, based on what you have just heard. Now, just for quick highlights, there's one more thing we did during the workshop series. We did a retail preference survey, and it was a small focus group. It's a small focus group. And we were trying to just learn more about the shopping patterns and preferences of Riviera Beach residents. And there were some interesting things that came out. They're great conversation. I think some of it validates our instincts and what we're thinking. But number one, we came up with 9 retail categories like grocery store, drugstore, car repair, hair salon. We came up with 9 of those and asked people, where do you shop for these services? So there were 19 people answering these 9 questions. Where do you shop for this specific service, right? And we probably got 150 respondents to those series of questions. And out of that, 20% of the people said that they shopped in Riviera Beach for those things, which meant 80% of the people were shopping outside of your borders. So it just helps to start to qualify and quantify what I call economic leakage. Because obviously, if there's something you want, it's not here, you're going to go get it, wherever it is. And that's what we see. The other interesting things that are going on, and this is interesting because it relates to some short-term things that are being done. I'm thinking about a food truck park, that we asked people, how many times do you go to a neighborhood center, you know, where you have a grocery store and a mix of neighborhood retail? And we asked them, how many times do you go in a week? And over 50% said they go 2 to 3 times. Okay, so think about your own behavior and patterns. We asked the same thing about a mall. How many times do you go to wherever your favorite mall is in a month? And the response was 2 to 3 times a month. And I said, whoa. So then we asked this question. My favorite question is, how many times do you go out to a restaurant a month? Okay? And the answer was 10 to 12 times. Okay? Then, and this is where my experience kicks in working in urban communities, I asked, how many of you go to dinner after church? I should have asked how many of you go to church, but I didn't. I forgot that. I was just making some assumptions. I need to check myself out. Okay, but we were on the same wavelength, you know, and so I asked, how many of you go to eat after you go to church? And it was 37%, 30 or 40% said that after church they went out to eat at least twice a month. Isn't that interesting? At least twice a month. So there is a big demand and a need and an interest. People are really interested in bringing more food opportunities, food and entertainment opportunities to town. Okay, this is preliminary. It's just a focus group, but it validates some of our instincts that, you know, people here spend a lot of money, eating out, and like good food and like convenience. And we all know that all of that, again, ching, 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 is untapped potential that's waiting here for the business community to tap into. Thank you very much.
So this was our brief overview of what Reimagine looks like. Over the last few months, we've been trying to reimagine. We've spoke to our shareholders, our residents, Today now, the next half is going to be our business owners. We're going to talk about development services. We're going to discuss what progress and what potential is coming to Broadway, coming to Avenue E, and what development we're going to actually focus on. In addition to the funding and resources that are available, the partnerships, the P3 options. Mr. Clarence Sermons is going to be up next, but what we're going to do is we're going to allow for Mr. Evans, both Mr. Scott Evans and Mr. Jonathan Evans, and Mr. Nottingham to answer any questions. We're going to do a Q&A while we start distributing the food so that everybody can eat, because we know that you're here for lunch, so we want to make sure that we get you guys fed, in addition to continuing the conversation, because we do still have residents online that are asking questions, and we want to go around the room, and we're going to ask some in-depth questions to discuss Reimagine Riviera Beach. So far what we've covered, we want you guys to be able to be engaged with that, and then we'll go into the second half after we finish eating with Mr. Clarence Sermons in regards to what development looks like, in regards to funding streams and P3 options that we may have available, okay? So we're going to start now. I'm going to come around, and I want you guys to address any questions or concerns based on what you've seen so far, or any ideas and visions of what you actually want to see done in the city, okay? So if you guys have any questions, I'm going to start back here. Let me try with the mic, because our residents home need to hear as well what you guys have to say.
In reference to the wellness center, will you all have the wellness center, will there be an inside pool? Will it be addressed for handicap? Will there be an incline where the handicap can walk in inside the pool? I just want to know if there will be a pool area in the wellness center, and if it will be addressed to handicap, to those that are handicapped. I haven't always been handicapped, but since I've been, it has been a big concern of mine. And it helped me to see from the other end that other people may not see.
Certainly, just to unpackage that particular question. So as it relates to a pool indoors, the likelihood that probably won't occur. However, there may be a therapeutic whirlpool that would be able to accommodate. So not something that would be a 6-lane Olympic pool, but something smaller. And all our facilities will be able to, all our facilities are required by law to be ADA accessible. So we may have to make sure we have the appropriate ramps and elevators and lifts to be able to ensure that every resident in our community has a right to participate in the activities. And I can tell you, I had a family member just this week that we found out that is now bound to a wheelchair. And so the way in which we think about things as a family has changed profoundly. So I'm thinking through my personal experiences with that. So we will make sure that all those particular elements are incorporated, but there probably will be a therapeutic whirlpool that will be there to be able to have persons, if they wanted to get into the water, that they can still recreate.
One thing, and also in addition to that with the aquatics, what we've seen is that our Barracuda Bay is actually costing us about $500,000 a year in operation, and it's costing the city taxpayers dollars. The issue we see with the aquatic centers, we also have a Rapids water park. One of the biggest water parks in South Florida is right here in the city of Riviera Beach. So to intertwine the two is difficult, but having the resources and the amenities available to our residents is what we're going to work on with our planning and development. And real quick, if everybody, I just wanted to acknowledge as well, the young lady that actually asked that question is the mother and Mr. and Mrs. Spence, mother and father of our American Idol, Mr. Willie Spence. So thank you so much for coming today.
Good afternoon. My name is Kent Pollock. I represent the Marsh Harbor Homeowners Association. And as a homeowner in Marsh Harbor, I heard Mr. Nottingham continually say ka-ching, ka-ching. Now, he's speaking my language. So my question is, although all three of these options look very appetizing and entertaining, which one is going to bring back the most ka-ching, ka-ching back to this community?
So we don't want to sway the voting process, but certainly when we look at the particular elements, we look at which properties are already off the tax roll, right? So which property the city already owns. When we look at the node of city facilities that actually is at 600, and we'll call it 601 Blue Heron, you're going to have to allow for increased densities and intensities. So if you allow for more development to occur on those sites and you relocate City Hall, which probably has in totality, the building may be 120,000 square feet, and so maybe encompassing of every bit of close to 5 acres when you look at everything. If you relocate that off, well, 2 acres, if you relocate that off the City Hall proper, you have a lot more developability on the existing site that City Hall is currently on. So when we talk about what our arrangement with the private sector would be, we have to look at densities and intensities. What are we going to allow for them to develop? What concessions are we willing to make as an agency? So we think as it relates to financeability and being able to bring the project to market the quickest would be the option that relocates City Hall off the existing campus. That provides for a larger mass for development opportunities on that particular property where the Wells Recreation Center is or where the current City Hall campus is. So if we keep it as a center mass, then we don't have many developable opportunities or redevelopment opportunities to say to the private sector where we can do some horse trading to say, hey, we want a favorable lease or purchase agreement and we're willing to allow for greater densities and intensities. So based on our just preliminary analysis and the discussion at multiple levels at the staff, we think the option that relocates City Hall from its existing position to the Broadway corridor is actually the option that allows for us to see more return on our investment.
Jonathan, I have a question. Actually, I would like to revisit that tax roll question later. I've got a lot of questions, but first, I didn't see an option A or B. In the beginning, you said the water plant was going to be reconfigured on the existing location. Did I misunderstand that?
So the water plant where it is now, that particular that development, that water infrastructure is anticipated to be relocated on the city's old Public Works campus, which is on the corner of Avenue L and Blue Heron. So basically catty corner a little down the street, maybe about 350 yards on the left-hand side of the road if you're heading west. That particular 5-acre piece of property that the city owns where the utility district is, we're looking to relocate that to where the Public Works campus is.
Okay, understood. I do have some more questions later, but I want to hear more.
Good afternoon. My question is twofold, and like the gentleman here, I have some additional questions, but I'll wait till the end. My first question is, what percentage have you all allotted to actual economic development in these proposals?
Well, as it relates to economic development, are you talking about the jobs associated with the construction market or the development in its entirety? What specific components are you looking for?
The private section. So I understand that these proposals came after conversations with the community. What concerns me about them is it seems to be more public than private development, and maybe it's just because that's the way the pictures look. So I'm saying of the $400 million you discussed,
right,
what percentage really is?
So we can only speak about the municipal facilities, the facilities that the city would occupy. We are giving the development community, as part of the partnership, a blank canvas. So we're allowing for them and let the market dictate as to what looks to go there. So even though you may have in its entirety $400 million worth of city infrastructure projects, you may have a totality of $600 million of private sector development that may result as this particular project. But we're just talking about with the development community is what our needs are. We need a wellness center, we need a city hall, we need a public safety facility, and the like. And so then we're going to say, this is what the envelope, or this is how much square footage we need to be able to do what we do. Now, private sector, you can say what the market conditions are. So you may say, hey, professional offices, condos, residential, mixed-use development. So it's really a blank canvas for the private sector.
Okay, and then, this may be early on in the discussions, you may not have had this, but what commitment is the city prepared to make to ensure that residents are a big part of the private development opportunities in terms of the businesses, marketing? Councilman Lawson mentioned grants, but I myself have inquired and there's been nothing. The websites aren't updated. So really, like, what commitment is the city prepared to make sure that the local residents, the local business owners, or residents who maybe want to become entrepreneurs are actually recruited into this new endeavor?
And that's a great point. I can tell you that in the perfect world, we'd like to see 100% of this particular project or our projects associated with creating economic development opportunities for our community. But the great thing about it is we own the land. We are willing to have discussions about concessions that the city would conceivably make, or the CRA. And so we have a driver's seat position in the arrangement. So we can make sure that the community is involved in whether it's the construction of the facilities to the occupancies that are in those facilities. We will have a great say, because at the end of the day, we are in partnership with this particular entity. And that's one of the things that we want to exceed what the normal expectations have been for construction projects in our community. Usually when you get 15 to 25%, you're excited. We don't want that. We want to have a larger equity stake and have ours as an example as to what we can do collaboratively, because if we're going to use your taxpayer monies to fund it and construct it, you should be able to benefit somehow as a result of the economic development opportunity. And so that is going to be the position that we take as an agency. We want to see a lot of our small local minority businesses in our community participate in this. And if they can't participate, let's build the capacity so the other projects they can participate on. Because City Hall in itself may be a $45 to $60 million project, and you may not be prepared for that project, but are you prepared for the Wells Recreation Center? Are you prepared for other development opportunities? And so that's something that we're going to make sure is at the forefront. And we have a consultant that's working with us to ensure that happens.
One of the biggest initiatives that we've started as a council has been a disparity study. A disparity study allows for all development and all money that is spent out of the city to go towards a certain percentage towards local, minority, and women businesses, SBEs. So that study would require that at least a certain percent that we set, whether it's 20, 25, 30, 35%, goes towards local, minority, and women businesses. Because we do not have a disparity study in place, we cannot require or demand that. But this council has made the assertive effort to say, listen, if you're coming to the table and you want to do business in the city, you need to make sure that you're empowering our local, our women, and minority businesses. So a lot of the development that's coming to the table now, they're bringing those options. They're reaching out to the vendors that are local and say, hey, we want you guys to participate in the development that's coming, in the growth in the city. So understanding that as long as you have a council that's pushing that initiative, regardless of if we have the study in place or not, those are the expectations that we have when they bring it to the table. That's the first thing. The second thing is also displacement. We want to make sure that we're doing development and growth in our community, but also being considerate of the residents and the local businesses that are there. So development without displacement is the tough initiative that we're taking on to try to make sure we get all of you Broadway Corridor incorporated, that if we put a city hall, if that's the option our residents choose, in our downtown corridor, that we don't overdevelopment or bring it to a position where those businesses on Broadway, Blue Heron, are affected in a way that they can't be a participant in what's happening. We talked about, Mr. Nottingham talked about the cafes possibly in our city hall. We've talked about the surrounding areas of housing, which we know that we have a housing crisis. So affordable workforce housing is something that we're starting to address. We had actually just approved, and we had a great update from Pinnacle Landing, which is going to be building just north of Blue Heron just north of Broadway just north of Blue Heron on Broadway. So that's going to be at that 2600, 2700, 2800 block, where we're going to be building and putting about $30 million into housing in that community. Okay? So those are some of the things in the direction that we're doing and that we have to safely do within our community.
Hi, my name is Kim Do, and I'm super excited to be here at the right time. I'm a resident of downtown West Palm for about 3 years now, and I heard a lot of people said, oh, before City Place, there was like a dumpster, gangster. I was scared to be down there, and now it's completely transformed after City Place and now, with COVID and work from home trend and other trends, we're benefiting so much. There are 2 articles in the Bloomberg this summer, like 2 big news. One is they're making it Wall Street South, and not just Wall Street South for the offices, for Wall Street firms coming down, but Manhattan South. So big developers are pouring money into offices and residents. And the other big news just last week is that University of Florida, top-ranking public university, they're going to open a branch also in West Palm. So I would love for the city of Riviera Beach, to draw some of that. For example, they opened the campus closer downtown, but a lot of the students, they would have to live somewhere. It would be fantastic, if the train station somehow would draw that crowd and all the other additional people living and working and learning around West Palm. A lot of those people can definitely come here too. So.
Absolutely. We think any partnership with higher educational institution is a great partnership because one of the biggest challenges we have, right, as we learn to modernize and think differently, are we going to have the workforce of the 21st century? And so how do we train and retrain our employees to be able to get those jobs that are coming? So we are all in favor of synergy between the city of West Palm and North Palm and Lake Park and what have you, because we're all in this together. Our residents don't realize that you drive into Riviera, you drive into West Palm, you drive into Lake Park, they're going from here to there, and they don't know sometimes what municipality they're in. So, any partnerships, any relationships, we're on board on that. As it relates to some of the questions about development opportunities, I can tell you some of the spaces that we are looking to build in the campus are going to be incubator spaces. So let's say you have a small startup company and you need an office space, you're an attorney or you are a caterer and you need space. We are going to have business spaces that we will have units that are built to suit, and then you can occupy that space for a period of 3 years with the intention for you to go and get your other space. But maybe that's the jump start you needed to facilitate your small business and growing. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at grant initiatives to be able to provide startup capital for those small businesses. So it's not going to be that we build a building and then, if you come to it, great. But we're going to look to how do we address the community holistically? How do we see the neighborhoods get better? How do we see the public parks get better? How do we see our school system get better as a result of the economic development?
So a couple quick questions in regards to homeowners that are going to be right there in the cuff of all the development. What type of incentives and protections are there for those homeowners? Also, how are we protecting the community from gentrification? That's very important. And then lastly, are we going to be able to, through this development, create jobs within the community for a lot of our people in our community that can benefit from being employed through all of this development?
So I'm going to take the last question first, and then I'm going to have the planners come and speak to the development and making sure that persons are not displaced as a result. And so one of the things that we are going to make sure is when we enter into a relationship with whomever our partner is that our partner is acutely aware of what our expectations are for our community to participate on the construction and the redevelopment of this community. One of the things, and I share this with Councilperson Lawson, is that the city of Orlando, if you go to their city hall, you know what they have in the front of their city hall? Rocking chairs. Why? Because they want you to feel welcome. This is the people's home. This is the public's home. So I cannot see a situation whereby we facilitate multiple millions of dollars of economic development in the community and don't make sure that the folks that are coming in to participate in the electrical work or the windows or the drywall or the construction of the facility are participating in that, even down to the catering of food for the workers that will be working on site. We're looking at it holistically because we want to exceed what traditional norms are or expectations. Like the councilperson said, that we are going forward with a disparity study. And with that disparity study, it will allow for us to pinpoint and target markets where traditionally we can't. Because we don't have that study, and a lot of government entities are now coming on board, because we don't have that study, we cannot target our investments to certain areas. So we're going to make sure that as part of the process that our partner knows, hey, for these concessions and for this opportunity to work with the city of Riviera Beach, we're expecting you to do a yeoman's job as it relates to reaching out to our local, small, minority-owned businesses, from the person that is going to make the sandwiches to the person that's going to put in the conduit for some of the Cat 5 or Cat 6 cabling. So those types of things are going to be on our responsibility, but we're going to make sure we do that because we want this project to make sure that it exceeds the expectations, but also is something that is a benchmark for other government entities as to how you do a collaborative project, because it's the people's home. City Hall, any of these campuses, it's the people. These will outlast me and other persons, and so we want to make sure that you can drive by that facility and say, you know, I worked on that, or I participated on that. That's the goal in mind. I'm going to turn it over to Scott Evans, who is our Planning and Development Director in the CRA, that can talk about some of the things we've discussed as it relates to zoning and ensuring that there's not gentrification that occurs, that property owners in the surrounding area can see their investment protected where it's not a situation where they're priced out of the community.
And after Mr. Scott Evans, we're going to take about we have 3 more questions that we have, and then I'm going to bring up Ms. Anita Jenkins, who is our Neighborhood Services Director, to discuss the development and growth of our community when it comes to housing and some of the projects and programs that she has in place. We'll talk about Marina Phase 2, and then we'll bring up our Development Services Director, Mr. Clarence Sermons, as well, to close out, because I want to keep you guys on time. You guys came for your lunch break, so I want to make sure that you're out of here on this timely fashion. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Lawson, Mr. Evans. I'll just speak to the first part of the question, which was how we look at existing single-family homeowners, existing business owners, and people who own property in the area. And so, of course, we're looking today, we've heard of some of these great options, which would all, I mean, the rebuilding of all of our city facilities would be a significant step forward for the city as a whole. But as we're looking at the different sites where they would go and the different types of development we'd like to attract associated with moving forward with new development options, both in the Broadway Corridor and the Blue Heron Corridor, and having that coordinated with the new City Hall efforts. We look at what the existing zoning regulations are in the areas and what the existing neighborhoods are, because it's important. We want to improve property values in the city for everyone. But as we do that, we also want to promote development that's sustainable and that protects the fabric of our existing neighborhoods. One of the ways we do that is, for example, a single-family neighborhood is primarily 1 or 2-story structures. So what we look at when we're trying to bring new development to areas that are adjacent to those is to bring a very controlled type of commercial or office that would be adjacent to those, which would mean typically a 3-story approach. And that way we transition from our existing neighborhoods, which we're trying to enhance, revitalize, and protect, to the new development areas, some of our vacant properties, some of the properties that we know we'd like to redevelop. So we do that in a sustainable way, and part of why we took a lot of time to look at the Avenue E corridor is to try and look at how we could bring some commercial, a mix of commercial and residential to that area and at the same time still protect all of the existing single-family homeowners and all of the existing business owners who are in the area who would be affected by major change. So we try and do that in a way that still protects the fabric of our neighborhoods and doesn't just develop every property like it's doesn't have neighbors, because it's very important that we look after our existing neighborhoods and improve the property values of those by doing sustainable development adjacent to them. Ms. Jenkins, do you want to? Anita is our Director of Neighborhood Services.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and Commissioner Lawson, and good afternoon to all of you. Some of you I know and have had an opportunity to work with, and it is so exciting to have this group of business owners, potential entrepreneurs, and residents available today. And we hope that you're getting as excited as we are about what's happening in our city. And I want to talk about some of the programs and projects very quickly that we have ongoing within our CRA, but I don't want you to think that we've forgotten about the rest of the city, because some of these things are available citywide, because I know there are some residents who live outside of the CRA. One of the first things that we did in neighborhood services was to create our Clean and Safe program with our ambassadors. So we hope that you're seeing the effect of that with the ambassadors in their uniforms, using their equipment throughout the business corridors of Broadway and Blue Heron, on Avenue E, in our neighborhoods. And we hope that, and we know that some of you participated in our Business Watch program, and that some of you have already stepped up with our Business Spotlight program, where we're trying to support existing businesses in existing community. For our residents as well as our small businesses, we rolled out last year our Smart Home program, where we're offering Ring devices, motion detectors, signage, etc., trying to bring a reality to the perception that we have a safe community that is safe for investment. So that's one of our programs. We have a Business Sense workshop, which has been actually replicated in some communities around the country, where it is a baseline entrepreneur introduction program where it provides support for those who want to bring their home-based business or create and fulfill their entrepreneurial dreams. And we have a class starting next week if some of you are interested in those. And one of the segments talks about how do you do business with government. So if you'd like to talk with me about that, just see me when we go into the panel discussion. And there was a question about commercial grants. We will be rolling out the next phase of our commercial grant. Some of you as business owners with physical spaces have already taken advantage of those for landscape, for painting, for beautification of your businesses. And we have proposed in our budget a next round for our commercial grants. We're rolling out facade grants and signage grants. So we would invite you to participate in those as well. Mr. Evans, Commissioner Lawson mentioned our coming food truck program. We know that we have home-based businesses, people who are interested, who may already have restaurant type of activities, where we're going to create opportunity right here at the Marina on the site of our former Spanish courts. And we're having a pilot project to roll out, and Mr. Nottingham will be working with us on creating a business plan to bring a permanent program here at the Marina. So that kicks off this Thursday night. I would encourage all of you all to come out and support those initial food truck businesses. Along with that, we'll be bringing before the commission a new small business incubator program. Perhaps you can't afford the rental space, but you have a good business idea that you want to move forward. And on some of the property that we already own, on projects that are going up like Berkeley Landing and others, we will have in-wall incubator space opportunities for our small business community. If you're familiar with the Smoothie Me Please business, that's our first incubator project. The next one will be at the corner of Avenue F and Blue Heron. So we're trying to support our small business community. Within our neighborhoods, we have our neighborhood beautification. Have you noticed that the corridors, that our neighborhoods, our streets look much cleaner? So there's an effort to bring out volunteers and residents to pick up trash, make sure that it looks better. We're helping to paint houses. And we have our award-winning community garden program. We have 5 community gardens that we support throughout the neighborhood. The newest one on Singer Island that beautifies a formerly vacant, overgrown lot. And on the housing side, we have our infill housing program, and along with the potentiality of City Hall on Broadway and Avenue E, in keeping with the Avenue E plan, we have approved and a commitment from the CRA Commission already for the 11th Street Townhouse project. So look forward to 12 new mixed income townhouse projects. The second phase will be a mixed use project, multi-stories, which will have small business opportunities within it. There are other housing programs and projects going on. Most excitingly, the Berkeley Landing project that is already funded, financed, and site plan approved. They go for their final approval of the site plan before the commission in a couple weeks. There will be 2 live, work, loft opportunities for small businesses within those, but a beautiful, beautiful project that we know will be an asset to the community. So I'll stop there, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk. But let me close with one question. How many of you have signed up at the CRA's website to receive continuing information, to get our newsletter, information about proposals for meetings? How many of you are signed up? How many? I would encourage each of you to go online. It's click on the first page of the CRA's website. You will get first information about everything going on within the CRA. So thank you for your attention. We appreciate your being in our community, and we look forward to more business, to more stabilized neighborhoods. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Now, everybody, I want everybody to go onto that website. The reason that we're having these lunch and learns is so that we can keep you involved and engaged in what's happening in the city. No decisions from this council are going to be made without the involvement and the decision of our shareholders, of our residents, of our taxpayers in our community. So please go onto the CRA website and register and make sure that you're getting all of the updates, because I don't want to hear that, oh, I didn't know this was happening, I didn't know grants were available, I didn't know housing was being developed in our community, because we send the updates every day, okay?
Thank you. I have 2 quick questions. Mr. Nottingham mentioned earlier that in doing some research, you would ask some questions about where people shop and things like that. To expand on that, are there any industries or businesses that are actually frowned upon that the city doesn't intentionally want in that community? That's the first question. The second question is, along the Blue Heron corridor, there are quite a few for rent, for sale signs on a lot of buildings, and they've actually been there for quite a while. Personally, I have not had much luck inquiring on purchasing or renting any of these businesses, but is there any plan or any infrastructure or thoughts going towards, be it to make it a little bit more accessible to rent these vacant buildings or vacant businesses? Thank you.
You see, nobody's rushing up there to answer that because that was an absolute loaded question, as if I've ever seen one. But
yeah, we were flipping the coin over what businesses we don't want. So, and Mr. Nottingham will address that question since I got up here first. So as it relates to businesses and entities that are, whether it's for sale, for lease, here's the challenge, right? Most of the folks that own, there's very few folks that own property in our community that reside in our community. So a lot of the properties are investor owned, and that's why you have some of the situations where you have absentee landlords and some of the challenges that we have on the Broadway corridor. So we are aggressively but quietly looking to acquire parcels that allows for us to assemble parcels for the purposes of redevelopment opportunities. As part of those redevelopment opportunities, we are always thinking about a situation that looks to build spaces for businesses to be able to have offices, whether it's professional offices, whether it's studios, whatever it may be. We're looking at those particular elements. One of the things, and to kind of kick it to Mr. Nottingham, one of the things that I certainly would look like, if there's a business that is operating in downtown West Palm or in any other urban setting, those are businesses that if it's good for West Palm or it's good for Boca, it's good for Riviera Beach. But we want to make sure that it's done in a sense that it's somewhere where mom, dad, and the kids can go and recreate and feel comfortable recreating. And so that's the things that we're thinking in mind. Obviously, we know that there's social things and restaurants and bars and all that create the synergy. But I can tell you, there's no reason why in Riviera Beach we cannot have the most eclectic mix of restaurants, bars, live music, those types of things. Because at the end of the day, we are a beach community, right? And so we need to really embrace that and have a mixture of places that gives you a sense or a feel of what the locals enjoy. We don't want a situation where you feel it's your cookie cutter experience. We want a situation, especially if we're going to facilitate the economic development, we want something that is unique and is an experience, because all of us do this, right? When we go to communities, you know, we look at the reviews, we look at where the locals go, we try to extract that sense of community so we can find out what are some unique experiences when we're visiting here. We have people that save up years to come spend 3 or 4 days with us. So let's capitalize on those opportunities that we have here in our community. And so I'll have Mr. Nottingham speak a little bit on the retail analysis and some of the things he's seen with his experience.
Well, what did I say? 40 years? I've been doing this for 40 years. No one's ever asked that question. Tell me what you tell me what you don't want in our town. Okay? Wasn't that your question? Yeah, that's a hard question for me to answer, right? But it brings out a very important point that we don't talk enough about, and that is creating a culture here that embraces what you're all about in terms of family values. How do we create a place where I want my business and I want my house, I want this to be my home address, okay? And so it's interesting that in urban planning principles, when you're trying to jumpstart a city, okay, they have this formula, they call it, what is it? Mix, mass, and mesh, okay? Mix is the mix of uses. Critical mass, you have enough of those uses that you will attract people. And mesh is how they relate to one another, okay? So you can take something that you don't want next to your house, okay? You don't want a little Beale Street next to your house, right? But a little Beale Street, I'm thinking Memphis now, I don't know why, but Bourbon Street, whatever. A little Beale Street in a proper location that's not one business, that's a mix of businesses, and is supported by the city and is done right, okay, then it's a good thing for the city. Because this is a beach town, this is a hospitality town, and you have tremendous untapped potential in that regard. I'm gonna tell you a story. There's a little town, when I worked for Disney, there was a chairman of the company named Michael Eisner. And everybody said, Michael is doing this and Michael is doing this. I felt sorry for the other people named Michael because there was only one Michael, right? And then the rumor got around, they said that Michael is going to Jonesboro, Tennessee. I said, what is he going to Jonesboro? I'm from Virginia, it's on the borderline. What is he going way out there for? So, you know, being the entrepreneur I am, I said, well, if Michael's going out there, I'm going out there. So I had a 6-year-old, got my car, I drove to Jonesboro, Tennessee. And I went there to a storytelling festival. And it changed my whole real estate development perspective and paradigm. And within 2 or 3 days, I saw 15,000 people come to a little town where they had put tents up, they had vendors and whatever, and ching, 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 ching. Okay, now, these people just claim that. And now they are the center for the perpetuation of storytelling, and they have a museum. Okay? So I get back to this thing about critical mass. There are uses that are eyesores, and I don't have to mention what they are, that you don't want next to you. You don't even want them in your commercial districts, right? But they can be uses that are part of something bigger that doesn't have to be negative. It could be, and the uses as the eyesores, we know what they are, you know. My daughter lives in Geneva, Switzerland. This is my daughter, right? She lives in a red light district. And over there, it's no big deal, right? Nobody's getting shot up and whatever. So it's all relative, you know.
So we have one more question. I know we have about 4 people that have some questions, but we have to get through the presentation to get everybody out of here on time because we still have to hear from Mr. Clarence Sermons, and Mr. Evans wants to give a brief update on Marina Phase 2. So I'm going to take this one question, we'll get the other presentations, and then we'll get to the individuals because I have 4 here that had a few more questions, okay?
How you doing? My name is Wesley. I own a landscaping company from Green to Greener. It's good that you could do all the projects, but at the end of the day, for me as a small business owner, how do we know that we're going to be protected? Because if you don't have the proper paperwork, you can basically have a rep, but is that rep going to go to the city manager and report to him about making sure that they have all the minorities on that project? And the second question is, when it comes to making sure that the business is going to do what they need to do, are we going to turn around and make sure that they have the right funding for them to do the projects? Because the city manager said that the projects maybe be too big, but basically what you can do is you could break it down where if he can handle a $200,000 project, he can handle that. If he can handle $100,000 or $25,000, is that going to be in the table for the rest of the projects?
So with regards to the opportunity for those particular situations, we are going to make sure that persons are able to participate. And if they can't participate, we are looking for opportunities to build that capacity. So to answer your question, the answer is yes. But we have to also look at a situation where what the developer is going to come in and ask for and what we're going to ask for, and then we're going to try to make that deal as best as we possibly can, with the understanding that we want to see that give somebody a start out. So maybe it's the $25,000, but in 3 or 4 months, that's going to double to $75,000. And is there an opportunity to continue to build that capacity and that bonding that is necessary for the work related to the project? So we are going to be looking at those steps. And then the other side of it is looking at it creatively, like what can we do as a city to assist in underwriting some of those costs? So if bonding is an issue, are we willing to say we believe enough in you where we're going to assist in facilitating and building your bonding capacity? Because one of the things that I'd like to see is I'd like to see your business grow in Riviera Beach, but also I want you to consume projects in our community and other communities. So how do we create that wealth with this project that's in our community to allow for you to do work in Gardens and Jupiter and other municipal projects that are going to be a different process? So our intent is to see all the small businesses grow as a result of these development opportunities, but then also providing them a catapulting forward to go do business with other 39 municipalities in Palm Beach County. That's the goal that we want to see this project help you all move forward in subsequent opportunities.
Now, everybody, before we get started with our next speaker, everybody has a survey on their table. I want everybody to please make one of your options of option A, B, or C. We need feedback from everybody in our community to understand what direction we want to go and develop and how the growth of our community is going to look. So with what you've heard today, if you can select one of the options, we're going to take those and tally them with some of the Reimagine workshops and the feedback that we've been doing so that the City Council can make a conscious decision. Up next, we have our Development Service Director, Mr. Clarence Sermons. He's going to discuss the comprehensive plan and what development looks like in our community, and in regards to zoning, in regards to intensities and densities, and a few things that he provides. Mr. Clarence Sermons.
Afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Clarence Sermons, and I have the pleasure and honor of serving as the Director of Development Services for this amazing city. I am very bullish on Riviera Beach. In the time that I've been here, it is very easy to see the assets and the potential that this city has, and we have some underdeveloped resources in the area of land, and my department's goal is to make sure that it's done in the right way. The Development Services Department is composed of the Planning and Zoning Division, the building official for permitting, as well as code compliance. So as a regulating entity, any development that is proposed through the city, whether it's new construction or redevelopment or renovations, it comes through my department. And through those roles and through those activities, we make sure that anything that is proposed or done here is done right. So when you look at the Broadway Corridor, especially as we talk about City Hall and what the CRA is doing in that area, we know that the demand is there for development. We have at one end the Port of Palm Beach, one of the biggest economic generators in the county, and then at the north, just over our city boundaries, we have the Nautilus 220 project that's going up in Lake Park, a 20-story mixed-use development that's going to be one of the shining installations in the county. So we know, being sandwiched between those two entities, that our Broadway corridor is primed for development. But we want to make sure that although the development pressures are there, and they are, every week I'm meeting with developers who want to build this or build that and have these ideas and submitting new applications. But we want to make sure that although we know the demand is there, that we are not just saying yes to anything, because we know the potential we have, and we want to make sure that our city is developed right. So some of those challenges is making sure that we are not just accepting any project, but also making sure that our codes and regulations are up to date. Our land development codes, we are currently working with the CRA and a consultant to make sure we're looking at the zoning mixes, what uses are allowed and prohibited in the area are reflected in our code. We are making sure that the densities and intensities are appropriate. Too much or too little is a problem, so we want to make sure we do the appropriate studies to make sure that balance is there to influence and progress the development that will happen here, but again, making sure that we're doing it in the right way. I mean, that includes city projects as well. Our projects manager for the city here, we often butt heads because even with city projects, I want to make sure we're getting the best proposal, whether it's a private developer or a city project, and that we aren't lowering our standards or expectations for anything that's developed here. So when they come to me with a proposed building or renovation, I say, no, this is what the code says. Yes, I know it's more expensive, but we want to make sure the experience of anyone driving through Riviera Beach is a positive one. And right now, when we have undeveloped sites, that's not positive, but when we do develop them, we want to make sure it's done in a way that sets the tone for where this city is going. So I am happy to engage with anyone who is interested or involved in this process. To everyone here, I will say to you, make sure you remain involved. Every time there's a project that is proposed to move forward of any significant scale, there's public meetings involved with it. Often in this room, I have planning and zoning board meetings, and it's usually myself, the planning and zoning board members, and my staff, but no community members to voice their opinions on these projects. And when there are members of the community that are present, they're usually the ones that are in opposition to something. But if there's a project coming through that you support, that you think is good for this community, come to the meetings and voice that and make sure that the board members and decision makers, the city council as well, that they hear from you and they know what you want to see in your community. So when it's something you support and when it's something you're proposed to, that engagement is very important to my department, and we make sure that every project that comes through our department, that you have the opportunity to do so. Additionally, on our department webpage, any project that submits an application to Riviera Beach, their application materials are online. You can look at the site plans. You can look at every piece of information and supporting documentation they submit so that you can be informed directly on what's being proposed and how you feel about it. And if you have questions about it, contact my department. We'll clarify anything that you may have questions on. And then we have those public meetings, the planning and zoning board meeting, the city council meetings. So your voice, the opportunity for your voice to be heard is always there. We're always here and welcome to serve you and this community. If there are any additional questions for me or anyone else, I'm sure they're here as well as myself to answer them. Thank you.
So before we go into the additional Q&A, I wanted to also hear from Mr. Evans. We're going to discuss the last phase, which is Marina Phase 2. That's something that the City Council inherited when we got elected about 2 years ago. So our focus has been to actually develop and grow our downtown corridor in Phase 2 of the Marina. That project, Mr. Evans is going to give an update on what's the next steps of it.
Careful with that Lysol, Councilman. So Marina Phase 2. Marina Phase 2 is the subsequent development associated with the campus that you're on today. Right now, we're in the process of a financial review of the proposers' solicitation document that they submitted to us. We have executed a contract with a private provider that is looking at their ability to finance and bring forward Element 8. Element 8 is the element that looks to construct about 132 condos on the property, which is referred to as Spanish Court. So where the food truck is over in the corner of the property closest to the marina and then the port. That particular development is looking to create that center mass that we've talked about as it relates to if we get people living within the downtown core, then that's the opportunity to create some synergy. There are 8 elements associated with Marina Phase 2. It goes to retail, it goes to commercial, it goes to residential. So we're looking to create something that's similar that you see in West Palm, their City Place, and some other areas that you've seen throughout Central Florida or even South Florida. We want this to be the node for commercial activities. So now we're working with a developer that's our partner to facilitate, hey, what is the finances of the entities and the partnership? What elements are going to be incorporated here? And then what concessions are the city and the CRA willing to give, whether it's a favorable lease agreement, whether it's remittance of the TIF or whether it's a long-term lease agreement or an outright sale of the property. One of the things that you'll hear, right, and we talk about the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA actually is an entity that is allowed to be created by law that you can designate a specific area in your community and you set a benchmark. So let's say you started your CRA in 1990. That's the benchmark. And so when you get ad valorem property taxes, when your property taxes go up, the incremental increase associated with when that baseline was generated goes into fund the CRA. And then the county's money, the money that the county would normally collect related to the growth, goes into the CRA. So the intent is to take that money and those dollars and reinvest it in the community. The essence of a CRA is intended to address slum and blight, right? They're an economic engine. And so that's one of the things that we're looking as this property is looked to be redeveloped. What opportunities do we have to utilize those funds to spur economic growth, development, and redevelopment of our CRA corridor? You can visit our website and you can see there's only a portion of the city that's in the CRA. So sometimes you hear us talk about the CRA stuff or the city stuff. The CRA was established for the purposes of addressing slum and blight, and we have about 19 years left because there's a state law that makes you sunset after a certain number of years. They drew a line in the sand in Tallahassee, and they said, okay, you only have this amount of years remaining. And so when we're doing these developments, we're thinking about how's the impact going to be to the city, but utilizing the CRA monies. When you talk about these particular projects, when you look at the City Hall campus and being in the CRA, that's another funding mechanism that we can utilize to help facilitate the capital construction of a major city facility within the downtown. So we're still in the matchmaking phase, I would call it, as it relates to the developer, making sure that they have the financial abilities to pay the bill once dinner's served. So that's where we are in the process, and subsequent conversations will be happening in front of the board probably in the next 30 to 45 days.
So we're going to let the few residents that are here, business owners, ask 4 more questions so that we can close out our program for today. I'm going to ask if Mr. Evans and our staff could stick around for a few minutes after we close out from being online to address any personal questions that you may have with the business, with the development, with your projects, and just kind of have a few minutes to go into that. But before we do go into that, I want to thank everybody for coming today and participating in this Lunch and Learn, because this is what we need. We need the engagement and involvement from these residents. We've put out advertisements to say, hey, come out and speak, have your voices heard, and there's limited representation. This is a vast majority of our community, especially from that Broadway corridor. And these are faces that are normally not at our regular meetings. So this is what we need, that engagement and that involvement from our residents to help our council make the right decision. Because without your involvement and your input, we cannot make the right decisions necessary to help grow your development and your businesses and your community.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mikhail Malord. I appreciate your time here. I just have a 2-part question. I understand that everybody is favoring, or from what I've heard, option C. I see the benefits of option C and option A. What raises my concern is the development process and how things will be switched around and how you guys will mitigate the operational capacity from putting the City Hall on Broadway and Avenue E right there. Things such as street parking, you guys are putting businesses and the City Hall there, which will attract a lot more people, but mixing business from the city and business owners will attract a lot of people, and putting that building right there, although it may be a Class A commercial, I just don't understand or don't see from the surrounding area how all that traffic will be mitigated or maintained. I also wanted to point out the fact that developing the surrounding area, now when you guys begin and everything's knocked down and being in the reconstruction phase, that's going to affect the prices of residential and commercial areas, not only on where it is at originally, but where it will be at if we choose option C. So that will give the opportunity for a lot of investors to come in, like this gentleman said, and buy those buildings from the absentee owners because of the developing areas. Same thing happens when malls are being built and other big Class A buildings are being built. So I just wanted to know what you guys will do to mitigate that risk, not only for the residents in Riviera Beach, but how will the operational capacity be handled if that building goes there?
And that was actually an excellent question, because we have to address the traffic, we have to address the development that's there currently, and also the potential development. So, Mr. Evans?
Right, so as it relates to the operations, so in the building, the parking garage is tucked into the interior of the building. So you'd probably have 2 stories of parking that will be inside the interior of the building. The way we would look to construct the building if it is sited on Broadway is it would have two front entrances, basically, one on Broadway and one on Avenue E. Our intent is to have, when you come in through that garage, or whether you come on from surface level parking, is that all the services that you would traditionally touch as it relates to I'm pulling a permit, I'm paying my utility bills, or what have you, will be those front-facing departments. So we're going to make it as easy and as simplistic as possible to be able to touch those services. Right now, the way the services are provided is obviously you park at City Hall, you walk in, or you go to the kiosk, and then you go through the machine, and then you come into City Hall. But most of our businesses that we're seeing is a lot more use of technology. And so there are limited situations and interactions that we have unless there's a specific service where somebody needs to process something. But we are going to make that experience as easy as possible, because even when I said that there's going to be some storefronts that will be wrapping the building, some of those storefronts may be a situation whereby it's part of the development services department. So you can find surface parking, or you can go in through the garage, whichever is easier or more convenient. The traffic that we have there at City Hall campus, we know that we get a lot of traffic associated with just the busyness of Blue Heron and Obama, and then the train makes it even that much more complicated. We do believe that the roadway network and some of the improvements that we would look to do on Avenue E, because we would look to reconstruct Avenue E as part of this project, would help improve some of the on-street parking. And so your only option will not be just to park inside the interior of the garage. Right now, I can tell you, we have city facilities all throughout the city. We have half of the police department that's at the Port Center on MLK. We have the police department on 600 West Blue Heron. We have civil drug court in our reentry program that's on MLK. We have city admin that's over at our public works campus. We have our city right now in so many different places that there's so much cost that's associated with windshield time. Now I've got to go from this building to this building. There's not a lot of synergy. Finance is at City Hall when city admin and HR is at Public Works. By bringing that together, we'll be a lot more efficient and we'll be able to operate more effectively. Right now, it's so challenging because all our facilities are at the end of their useful life, and we just don't have the space to accommodate the workforce. So we believe bringing those units together will allow for us to facilitate. Now, you're right. If it's on City Hall, the existing campus, you just would have to make sure you construct it in a way that you don't impact the existing operation. But City Hall can go anywhere. If you do move City Hall off of the existing campus, it allows for you to effectively have more opportunities for development. Now, we are going to make sure that our job as staff working with the elected officials is to make sure that businesses get the opportunity to participate. And this board has been dead set and locked in to ensure that happens. So that's a major priority associated with that project. And if it doesn't happen, the board's not going to move forward in subsequent steps. It has to require the participation of locals.
Good afternoon. My name is Vivian Blackman Taylor, and I have been a resident of Riviera Beach for 61 years. I am very excited about about reimagining Riviera Beach and the proposed changes. The one thing that I would like to ask that be considered to be included, I have not heard anything about our children. I would like to ask that as these developments proceed, that there is consideration for including STEM, is everyone familiar with STEM and STEAM? To include STEM and STEAM projects in the developments, as well as to also provide opportunities for internships for children as these projects develop. They could be unpaid internships, they could be volunteer community service hours, which all high school students need, but this would be a wonderful opportunity for us to help to develop the residents, the children of Riviera Beach. We have Suncoast here in Riviera Beach, which is one of the top high schools in the nation. So we need to make sure that we are providing a foundation and opportunities for our residents of Riviera Beach to take advantage of this project that's being implemented.
Absolutely, and I can tell you, since we're in a safe place here, I'll let a secret out. So if we decide to move forward with the construction of a facility on Broadway, the municipal operation that would face Avenue E would be the library. So the library would actually, in this particular development, is contemplated that the library would be in its entire floor. And that would have the components associated with some of the children's library and the STEM curriculum and all that. We also are, and we had the conversation today, how can we participate with local daycares or educational institutions to create a space where we can, as the city, we're going to give you a favorable lease agreement, but come in and make sure our kids are performing above standards as it relates to academic achievement. Because one of the things, and I know, I'm glad Mr. Ferguson's here, he's a staunch advocate for education and education opportunities for our young people, is how do we create for opportunities where our kids don't backslide during summer? I'm very concerned what the pandemic has done, where our kids are today, and how far behind they're going to be if we don't create that space. So we are going to make sure we do it with some intentionality to make sure that the kids participate in the facility and that there is situations whereby there is spaces that can allow for young people, not just at the City Hall campus as it relates to the library, but also one of the things that we've talked about is the wellness center. The wellness component would be a situation whereby they'd have all the recreational amenities they have plus more. And the other side of it is, how do we get kids into coding? How do we get them involved in the things that they're doing on their phone? Kids nowadays see more than kids 50 years ago used to see in a year in 10 minutes. So these kids are super, trust me, I got one at home. They're super fast and they process things in real time. And they're inquisitive. So how do you utilize that inquisitive nature to help move them forward? And so we want to, similar to how you see in some communities, Kumar or some other programs or what have, we want to have a learning institution as part of this, because when we talk about recreation and we talk about these facilities, we want to talk about wellness holistically. If Jonathan is not getting the right nutrition at home, but if he can't read, it's those things that are setting our kids back. So we're going to look at that, and that's going to be a major component of how we move this project forward.
So residents, I don't know if you guys saw the energy, the excitement, and the change in Mr. Evans when we talked about education, when we talked about the STEM program. One of our first ribbon cuttings here in the city was our brand new library, and I want to challenge every one of you to go visit that library this week. It's on the corner of Congress and Blue Heron, and that is a facility that we had to address because our kids are our number one priority. We have to make sure that we're laying the proper foundation, but we're also addressing the concerns of our youth and our seniors to make sure that they're taken care of. So the library that we had over on 600 Blue Heron, we had to reestablish something. Even though we're looking to develop these projects realistically with construction is going to take 3, 4, 5 years to get out of the ground. So setting up a state-of-the-art library with a state-of-the-art STEM facility is currently in place. So we have an operating library, and we want all of our residents that are watching at home and here to go visit that library, okay?
Yeah, if you haven't had the opportunity to visit the library, it's at 2129 North Congress Avenue. It has a STEM lab. It has, it's in the process of having a cafe that's going to be staffed by our students. So it's going to be an incubator cafe, which we're already partnering with Marriott, so where they can get customer service training to where they can conceivably work at our cafe and then go work at the Marriott in Singer Island, which is going to hire 60 new positions because they're seeing their numbers exceed pre-COVID, and they're having a hard time finding people for the service industry. So we're looking to make that connection. We also have a state-of-the-art testing lab that if you're sitting for SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, LSAT, you'll be able to do that in your community. You don't have to go to a testing center in West Palm or Gardens or what have you. You'll have that there. We also have in our STEM lab whereby the teachers can actually come in and instruct and broadcast it out to all of Palm Beach County to do experiments in our lab. We're going to have a hydroponic garden. We're going to have a saltwater fish tank. So if you haven't seen the space, it's a great space. And what we're doing with that space after we bring to life a brand new state-of-the-art library as part of the development, that particular space that we acquired will become a community center. So it's not something that we did haphazardly. We did it with some intentionality because we need to create those space and those opportunities for both our seniors, our young folks, and our middle-aged folks to be able to have some place to go. And that's why that facility was the first facility we brought out of the ground, because of the importance of the education, right? That's the great equalizer.
So we're going to take 3 more questions, and then we're going to close out. But make sure, please, fill that survey out before you leave. Mr. Jackson, my legislative aide, will be collecting that information from you guys. So just make sure you guys fill out option A, B, or C. These are our last 3 questions, and then we'll just go ahead and mingle with some of our staff that's here if you have any questions or concerns.
Thank you, sir. My name is Daphne Taylor, South Florida Times newspaper, the largest African-American newspaper serving all of Miami, Broward, and the Palm Beaches. I have a quick question. Perhaps you already answered this because I did come in a little late. What is the timeline for the proposed new city hall, and what is the next actual step to making it happen? Then my next question is, I thought that as a reporter, I was so elated about Amazon, and I thought it was a done deal, but is it true that it still has to be voted upon at the next meeting, or is that accurate or not?
Right, twofold. So we're gearing up and we're spinning up to be able to break ground on wherever that site is that is selected by the community and the policymakers by the centennial celebration of the city's 100th birthday, which is September 29th of 2020. That's the date where we want to put a shovel in the ground, and then the next date, all the site work starts, or even before then. So that's the intent. Once we pierce the ground, you're looking at about a 18 to 36 month construction period. But we would look to plan out to be able to occupy the facility. Our rough estimates is September 24 or September 25, but that's what we are looking to do because we want to deliver the City Hall campus on the city's birthday. So that's what we're planning out to do. So 24, 25 would be the year that we can see where we are operating out of that particular facility. To shift gears really quickly, there is some procedural things that need to happen with Amazon. I don't foresee there being any issues. These are some things that have to go through the process. So this next meeting that the board has on Wednesday is, in essence, the finalization of some key components associated with the company that shall remain nameless for the purposes of our agenda item, but you stated it, which is going to bring roughly anywhere from we've heard from 200 to 400 jobs with a wage starting at $15 an hour. And plus, one of the new things that is being rolled out by this company, which we all probably have a package at home from this company today or something like that, that they will actually be able to provide same-day services. So you can conceivably go on and get something. And if you live in Riviera Beach, you can conceivably get that item if it's in their warehouse that day. So that's something that's exciting for us, and we're happy about being able to reel that big fish in, and that's another great Fortune 500 company that you have here in your community.
Good afternoon, dear friends. My name is Rabbi Beryl Namdar, and my wife Sivya and I lead the Jewish community Chabad of Singer Island and the beaches. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to Jonathan for your leadership, Councilman Clarence, and everyone in the CRA. We have Anita and everyone in the CRA and the City of Riviera Beach, Council, Zoning and Development, and all of you, dear neighbors, residents of Riviera Beach. We appreciate everything that is spoken here about the vision, reimagining Riviera Beach. Who doesn't resonate with that? But really, I am leaving today inspired by the freshness, the forward thinking, the inclusion, our children, generations to come. This is historic. So I just wanted to say thank you. Join me in rounds of applause to thank our dear leadership. Thank you.
Jonathan, I want to say thank you as well. I want to thank Councilman Lawson for putting this together. Richard Pinsky, I represent Reimagine here today, and even though we didn't speak a lot about the marine industry today, and it goes without saying, I still would like to say it, that the marine industry, first of all, Reimagine, like Clarence, we're bullish on Riviera Beach. 90% of the operations that are taking place in West Palm will be moved to Riviera Beach in the next 2 or 3 years. So the footprint that's 3 times the size of what we have in West Palm Beach is going to be bringing the same hundreds of jobs that we have in West Palm Beach. And so to you and your staff, you guys have been great, very accommodating, and we look forward to a future. Having said that, Broadway Corridor is very important to the Reimagine footprint. The Riviera Beach, other than the Panhandle, represents one of the few remaining working waterfronts in the state of Florida. And so when you think of Viking and Lockheed and the marine industry of what it's doing, not just in Riviera Beach, but all of Palm Beach County, the growth and job potential is tremendous. We would like to see the Inlet Grove Community School, their marine worker training program, be expanded upon. It's a great opportunity for youth. Not everybody goes to college. Love for that to happen, but it just doesn't happen. Plus, when you get an unemployment rate that we're hitting now below 4% again, 3%, the people that don't have the job are the people that we want to target, and the marine industry is perfect for. So Reimagine can't survive as the marine industry can't survive without workers. And so while you're creating housing and you're creating opportunities along Broadway, I know you won't forget the marine industry along Broadway. Those hundreds of workers, and literally you will have 1,000 people a day coming to work at Reimagine. They need a place to eat lunch. They need a place to eat dinner, perhaps, certainly coffee in the morning. And those opportunities mean a great deal to Riviera Beach. Whatever you choose, we have no opinion. Whatever Riviera Beach does, we are going to support. I would caution, like this young man did right here, that when you shoehorn City Hall in on Broadway, not just parking and ease of access, because people are just used to cruising in off of Blue Heron parking and leisurely walking into City Hall, but how that experience happens after hours as well. And so we're supportive of whatever you want to do. Taking my Riviera Beach hat, my Reimagine hat off for Riviera Beach for the moment and putting on the port hat, so I represent the Port of Palm Beach as well. The train station in your option A, I would kind of discourage. I don't want to put water on anything, but the port can't even handle at the moment the building of the train every morning. And so think about how the train backs up and influences your emergency services and your traffic now. And in West Palm Beach, they have it a little bit too, when the Brightline train slows down, all those intersections in downtown slow down.
that one would be right above Blue Heron in the morning. So great idea. Love TODs, but I'd double check that one. But thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us and supportive of whatever you do.
Thank you. The train is a sensitive topic, and I'll leave it at that. We're trying to work through those issues. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
So to that point, I believe that we had one more. We have 2 questions left, and then we're going to close out our program. We're going to stick around for a few minutes so you guys can kind of engage with our staff as well. But these will be the last 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Justine. I want to thank you guys for having us, for putting this together. I want to applaud you guys for coming up with this proposed development and this corridor. I grew up not too far from this corridor. I do remember what it looked like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. I remember what it looked like. Now, I see the focal point is on E Avenue, 22nd and 23rd, and leading to Broadway Corridor. I wanted to know if there's any proposed plan for development along the boulevard, Blue Heron. Just like you guys did on MLK, is there any plans for future development along that main boulevard that leads to this beautiful proposed development? Thank you.
Right, so with regards to the development on Blue Heron, one of the things that we anticipate from Blue Heron all the way to the railroad tracks to President Obama, that particular stretch of the community will be primed for redevelopment opportunities when those parcels become available. The CRA owns a parcel that's on the corner of Avenue F, and that project is going to hopefully be coming out of the ground here shortly, which is referred to as our Blue Lagoon property, whereby we're working with a local restaurateur to facilitate the capital construction of that particular development, and then some incubator spaces to create some commercial synergy. So we know that it's inevitable that that particular stretch will redevelop. And so as a city, we're planning for and preparing for that to happen. The only plans that we have is the Blue Lagoon project. But, you know, from time to time, we get developers that say, hey, if I was to acquire this parcel, this parcel, this parcel, what can we conceivably do? And one of the things that we want to be conscientious of, we don't want to create the canyon effect, right? We don't want you to have where you have 20-story buildings, an entire stretch, and it blocks out the sun, right? We don't want that. We want, if it is redevelopment that occurs in that area, that it is the more of the mixed use, the low density types of buildings that is going to abut residential, so it's not a situation where somebody on the 13th floor can look at you in your backyard, you know, in the pool. So we are conscientious of that, and so any development that happens in that particular part of our community would be done tastefully and make sure that it doesn't create a situation where it does create that canyon effect.
Good afternoon, and I thank you for this time. My name is Thea Sullivan, and I am the Senior Vice President, Director of Community Lending for Valley Bank. And I must say that I grew up in Riviera Beach in Monroe Heights. I moved from Detroit and thought that was the worst thing my mom could do in high school, but it turned out to be one of the best. And I started my first job in Riviera Beach. And I'm back to see what I can do to help support Riviera Beach. I partner with a lot of different people in a lot of different communities. I sit on several boards. And I actually introduced a not-for-profit organization to the mayor, who is looking to come into the market and provide some affordable housing. So I will make sure all of you have their name in case that's something you want to address. But more importantly, I've been asked to lead a team in 4 states, New York, New Jersey, Florida, and Alabama, for community lending. During the pandemic, my institution realized that there was a need to support minority and women-owned businesses. And they've asked me and my team, and this is Aquanetta Thomas here, one of my business development officers, to take on this task. And so I want you all to know that we are looking to hopefully partner with the city of Riviera Beach. I did have a meeting with Councilman Lawson, so we're going to pursue it more. I've worked with Anita for many, many years, I'll say when I was younger. But I want you to know that there is an organization out there that realizes that small businesses just need a little hand holding. And our job is to be that hand to hold and direct and see that you get the lending. And just on a side note, in full disclosure, I also sit on the board of the Black Business Investment Corp along with Councilman Lawson. And I have one of my clients here that's very happy. So thank you. I appreciate you inviting us. I look for more of an opportunity to support. I'm going to put my, well, I'll say some of my monies where my mouth is. If there's something I can do to help, I give you my number and say reach out.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, in addition to Mr. Evans, Mr. Scott Evans, Mr. Jonathan Evans, please make sure you see Mr. Hayes over there in reference to resources, funding, and support. That's part of our initiative and our plan. Find lenders, find businesses, find organizations throughout our community, in our private sector, in our public sector, to partner with the businesses to be able to provide opportunity, finances, resources to be able to develop and grow your business here in our community. Without further ado, we wanted to thank everybody from the city of Riviera Beach, on behalf of my entire council, on behalf of my mayor, and on behalf of our entire staff that's here. Every resident, this meeting was phenomenal. We are thankful that you guys were able to come out today and continue to push the city forward, the best city to live, work, and play. Thank you.